Welcome back. So, what's the return on listening? The answer may surprise you. It's not just that you may learn something from the person you're listening to, although that's a benefit. The truth is, there are a lot of benefits to you and the person you're listening to. Let's start with you. The neuroscientist Bo Lotto has done a lot of research in the field of noticing. He says that just the act of stopping your mind from wandering and bringing it back to focus on the person in front of you can change the chemical makeup of your brain. Noticing where your mind is, stopping your mind from wandering, releases oxytocin in your brain. Oxytocin is the chemical that's released when a mother looks in the face of a baby or when we look at a puppy or a beautiful flower. It's associated with being more empathetic and generous. It's part of being a human being. It's part of how we survive as a species because it triggers a need to look after one another. Bo Lotto has done a lot of research to show that when our minds are generous and empathetic, we listen more creatively. So that's one payoff. The other payoff is what happens to the person you're listening to. When I'm listening to you with generosity and empathy, it doesn't just change me, it changes you. Whatever thoughts you're trying to frame in your mind and share with me, they become sharper and clearer when you experience my curiosity and respect for you. Mirroring the oxytocin in my brain, your brain starts to go through a similar chemical change. Your own thoughts and expression of them become generous in response to my generous listening and empathetic in response to my empathy. And whatever you're trying to say becomes deeper and more profoundly human. And for the listener, there's one more benefit. For that, I'll quote Bo. Listening, he writes, is the diminishment of the answers we project onto the world. It lets in the possibility of the question, the possibility that through questions, my assumptions might come to map onto your assumptions, which is when we feel connected. On the course page, you'll find a link to Bo's book, Deviate. If you find his ideas interesting, the book is worth reading. Now, let's put this idea into action. We've already learned that good listeners are radically self-aware. They keep track of where their mind is, and they keep bringing it back to the person in front of them. So here's the next lesson. Good listeners are intensely curious, intensely curious. Curious means I want to know about you. So I'm not just curious about the topic you're sharing with me. I'm curious about you and how you know this and where your ideas come from in your mind. Even if I don't think you're making sense, I'm still curious about you. Being curious is about more than hearing the words. Be curious about where they're coming from and the internal state of the person speaking to them. If you're curious, you're not just interested in what I'm saying, but in who I'm being. Good listeners read the whole person because people are interesting. Yeah, there seem to be a lot of them around you. And yes, sometimes they all seem to be saying the same thing. But that's where curiosity comes in. What's different about this person in front of you? What's unique about him? And what is universal? What's her story, her mental movie, her hero's journey? Imagine standing in a Paris boulanger and looking at 1,000 delicious pastries. You want to know everything about them all, and you're also drawn to the ones that look familiar, that seem to reach out to you. Can you approach another human being with that kind of open appreciation? Even if you can't yet see what's so sweet about a person, can you know the sweetness is there for you to discover? If you can't get to that level of delicious curiosity, you'll never be a great listener. Curiosity is not something you get. It's something you give. And when it comes to creating a powerful sense of self and a sense of well-being, All the research shows that you can't beat the neurological benefits of giving. Give the gift of your curiosity. Okay, let's take a minute to do something. I'm going to ask you to pause the stream and write a few notes. First, write a note about what you notice when you meet someone new. What draws your attention? What makes you want to listen to them? Next, write a note about your curiosity quotient. Are you deeply curious about the world around you and the people in front of you? What makes you curious? What makes you stop listening? What makes you stop caring? Got it? Okay, this can just be a couple of short notes. If you want to come back and journal more deeply on this, you can do that later. I'll be here when you get back. Okay, welcome back. You might have been surprised by the question about curiosity. For many people, curiosity is sort of drummed out of us by our experiences in education and in the workplace. Don't worry. If your curiosity has been dimmed down, you can pump it back up. Like any other kind of neural process, curiosity responds to exercise just like a muscle. Practice makes it stronger. So let's move on to the next lesson. And this is a big one. Listening is a contact sport. Good listening is not something you just do with your ears. Listening is a full body experience. If you want to understand what I'm saying, it's not enough for you just to hear me. You have to feel me. The words are only part of the communication. You have to experience my whole self, not just my words. And the reason is that our words are only part of the message. My words may be a sincere attempt to express what I'm thinking and what I want to say. They may also be a failed attempt. Expressing ourselves, even trying to understand what we think and feel inside ourselves, is not automatic. So good listeners are kinesthetic. What does kinesthetic mean? It's the experience of body awareness. Imagine a gymnast vaulting off a balance beam in a triple somersault with a double twist. Got the image? She's probably 8 feet off the ground, spinning in space. If it were me, I'd be on my way to a broken neck. But for her, the worst thing might be a stumble on the landing. She has a sense of where she is in the air in relation to the spot on the mat where she's going to land. She can't think about it. There isn't time, but she feels it and adjusts her body in flight, the angles of her arms and legs, the bend of her torso, the position of her head. That's a kinesthetic sense. She can feel when she's tuned in and when she's not. So let's take a moment and take stock of where you are in relation to your body right now. Pull your attention out of your eyes and ears for a moment. Put your attention out of your mind. Take a moment to feel your arms and legs, your hands and feet. Feel your skin, particularly on your forearms and the back of your neck. Can you feel the air moving in the room around you? Can you feel your skin sensing the sound of my voice? That's your kinesthetic self at work, sensing your environment. If any lions or tigers or bears come near you, that's the sense that's going to alert you first. Now, assuming you're not about to be assaulted by a wild carnivore, I want you to pause the stream again and write a note about what you're feeling with your body. Go ahead, I'll wait. Okay, what did you notice about your kinesthetic sense of the room and of yourself? If you're interested in knowing more about this level of self-awareness, on the course page, you'll find a link to information about my upcoming book, Being Essential: Radical Self-Awareness for Life, Love, and Leadership. Because the more aware you are of yourself and where your mind is, the more you'll be able to be an effective and engaging leader. Okay, now as we move forward, let's work on something. You're encountering me on streaming video, maybe even on your phone. So if you're stretched out on your sofa with your feet up, that's completely appropriate. But for the rest of this session, let's do something different. Pretend I'm sitting with you in the same room, whatever room you're in. If I were with you, I'd probably be just like I am now, maybe sitting across a table, leaning in as we connect. I do a dozen coaching calls with leaders every week, just like this. So pretend you and I are together on a Zoom call. Of course, there's a lot that's missing here. It's not real time, and we're not in real space. But even with that, your body's mirror neurons can pick up all sorts of social cues from me that are important. Why are they important? Let me introduce you to the topic of signal and noise. Remember a few minutes ago, I said words are only part of what someone wants to say. Words are the signal. Everything else is the noise. If I send you an email, that's all signal, unless maybe I throw in a few emojis or try to be funny. And if you're an astrophysicist trying to focus your radio telescope on the signal of a distant star, you want to separate the signal from all the rest of the noise of space. But with people, when we listen to each other, we need the noise. Think of the signal as the content and the noise as the context. Both are critical to human communication. If I send you an email responding to being told I'm off the project, then the email reads, "Sure, I'm fine with that." All you have is signal. But if I'm sitting across your desk and I say, "Sure, I'm fine with that," see how the noise drowns out the signal? The noise tells you I'm not fine at all. And in this case, the noise is the whole message. The noise lets you know maybe I need a little coaching. Maybe it's time to ask me what's going on. That's why listening has to be a contact sport. The experience of listening to someone with your whole being creates a series of physiological changes that you can feel. If you're not feeling them, you're not listening. To paraphrase a philosopher from the 1960s, you have to tune into your energy and turn on to the person you're listening to. Good listeners share their own energy. You connect to the person in front of you and encourage the heart. When we feel someone is really listening to us, it changes how we think and communicate. Any quantum physicist will tell you that observation changes outcome. So does this kind of listening. If I feel that you find me interesting, how much more likely am I to open up and share what I'm really thinking and feeling with you? Giving me your genuine energy and attention can actually help me understand myself better. And if I do that, how much more likely are you to understand me more fully? What's the return on listening? In a 2016 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, researchers found a big difference in the outcomes for elderly patients who were seen by female physicians. How big a difference? 32,000 fewer patients would die if all their doctors were female. Why? The research suggests that female doctors are likely to be better listeners. And like I said a minute ago, listening changes outcomes. And one last thing, it's not easy to listen like this. It takes practice. Practice develops your listening muscles so that good listening becomes a natural habit. And when it's natural, you'll find it creates powerful new relationships. Think about times when you've experienced someone listening to you with this kind of energy. It feels great, and you want to know more about and spend more time with that person because they understand you. And we all want to be understood. That's the power of great listening. Next session, we'll dive into the next part of the art of listening, which focuses on the cognitive challenges we face in trying to hear what someone is saying.